My freak flag fly.
Yeah. Yeah. Your freak flag. Let that fly.
And Roger, I think I saw you have this queued up, but there's the guy's video of the pufferfish display. I'm assuming you're going to show that while we talk about that email, right?
That looked really cool. I was into it.
I don't know if you're saying yes because I think you're muted, but you only have to unmute if you're going to say no. Or maybe he's not even there right now. Maybe he ran to the restroom. Yeah, that pufferfish thing is cool looking. That was a good email. I saw signs for places that serve pufferfish when I was in Japan.
Oh, yeah? Were you tempted?
I was tempted, but not tempted enough to actually do it.
You're a eat anything once kind of guy, but when it's, could literally take your life if prepared wrong, maybe
I mean, that's true of any restaurant. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Good point. We don't really know what we're getting.
You're always taking your life in your hands when you leave your house or when you stay inside your house.
Yeah. Or when you live.
Or when you breathe.
When you exist.
Oh.
Sorry. I had to restart.
I thought you were just being clever.
No.
I will give you more control. So did you hear me ask about pufferfish?
Yes. I was about to say I've had it, but, it's really the organ. So when you get this...
No, about the email, the guy's email.
The puffer... Oh, yes, I heard that too.
Okay.
But I want to say I've had pufferfish. It tastes like fish.
Why can't... Oh, so you still have control?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right.
Can I not control?
Oh, no, I thought you dropped out and I had to give you control again. Never mind. I misunderstood.
Does that work?
Yes, it does.
Well, you destroyed the first story, Roger. All right. I'm going to hide.
Spoiler. All right, cool.
Put that on my face.
And we're almost ready. I just got to load one more thing here. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Schnago's excited to see Donald Bell. Yay!
Aww.
Oh. Schnago brings curds, like really good cheese curds to Nerdtacular. I hope he does it next year.
It's going to be all pufferfish and cheese curds.
Oh, that's
the days of pufferfish and cheese curd.
That won't wake you up at 3 a.m.
It might kill you. A couple different ways.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Almost there, you guys.
You're fine.
I just wanted to put this one little thing in here at the bottom.
Not as easy as a domesticated pufferfish.
And now we are ready. Here we go.
Quality content thrives through the support of those who benefit from its creation. If you gain value from the Daily Tech News Show, consider joining others like me who provide support. Learn how to help at dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, October 5th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me as always on Wednesdays, Mr. Scott Johnson is in the house. How you doing, Scott?
In his house. I'm really happy to be here because it's Technology Day and all my Yahoo accounts, I've destroyed them. Everything's great.
You're one of them, eh? Like, I'm not going to wait to see what's really happening. Better safe than sorry. Just delete those accounts.
I'll hang around. Look, the only service I use from them is Flickr. I actually like Flickr, so I'll wait and see.
All right. You'll let them see your flickers. You don't mind at the end of sees your flickers. Also joining us today, very happy to have old friend Donald Bell, who is currently host of Maker Project Lab at makerprojectlab.com, here to explain Arduino to us. Finally, Donald.
I'm doing everything I can, Tom. I'm happy to be here and spread some Arduino love.
Those of you who remember the Buzz Out Loud days probably remember Donald. Donald also took over Top 5 for a while at CNET, moved on to Make Magazine, and is now doing an amazing show of his own over at YouTube. If you're into maker stuff at all, go check that out. You can find all the details at makerprojectlab.com. But thanks for being on to share a little maker magic with us.
You got it. I'm happy to be here.
All right, just a follow-up before we get started. Yahoo says that Reuters reported that it was scanning incoming email at the request of the U.S. government, but was misleading in that report. In other words, Yahoo says that report was misleading and that the mail scanning described in the article does not exist on our systems anymore. They didn't say the anymore part. Twitter, Google, Facebook, Apple have all explicitly stated that they have never received such a request, so they're putting the hammer down on that speculation. Microsoft said they have never conducted such scanning, which I don't know if that's just a different way of phrasing it or if they're like, well, we were requested once, but we didn't do it.
We didn't scan that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys, this is going to be ongoing. Yahoo giving this sort of non-denial denial is just going to fan the flames, I think.
Oh yeah, we're not done with this by any means, I'm sure. They're in a weird position though, by first of all having this happen and be talked about on Reuters and everywhere else that it spread, and then they had to come and make a response to it. But they're the only one having to do this from the perspective of they're being accused of something, and all these other guys came in with sort of preemptive, no, we've never gotten this, or in Microsoft's case, we've never done such scanning. All of it is kind of up to interpretation, and you could probably have all sorts of fun about what everyone's message means and what could actually be hidden in it. But without getting too conspiratorial, I do not think Yahoo or Marissa Mayer or anyone involved are done explaining this, probably not for a good while.
Well, let's get to some actual factual things that happen in our top stories. Brian Green was boarding Southwest Airlines Flight 944 today from Louisville to Baltimore when his newly replaced Samsung Galaxy Note 7 began smoking. And not in the, like, sir, there's no smoking on this flight, like billowing smoke. In fact, Green told The Verge he had powered down the phone as requested by the flight crew, even though he didn't have to. It was a replacement one, but he didn't, people are saying Note 7. So he powered it down, put it in his pocket, when a thick gray-green angry smoke started coming out of the device. Green dropped it on the floor where it burned through the carpet. All passengers and crew were exited and were uninjured. Nobody got hurt. Green said he had received his replacement phone September 21st at an AT&T store. So he got a new one. The Verge even got a picture of the box with the little black square on it, and the battery burned. Here's the thing, though. These lithium-ion batteries in any phone at any time have a small chance of this happening. Remember, this has happened to iPhones before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is the interesting thing about phones in general is as they've matured, the formula is like the processors will shrink down to make room for more battery, right? That's the whole story of the smartphone for the past 5 years. Has just been how can we fit more battery into these things and do more with less in terms of the actual hardware.
Yeah, having this explode obviously is something that the Samsung wants to have happen. Even if this is just one of those freak chance things, the PR is going to be hard for them to deal with. Even if this was just absolutely out there, was going to happen no matter what. To me, they're now in a position that Tesla is anytime there's a Tesla accident, because Tesla can say all day long, well, what about the other 60,000 accidents that happened today? We've had one in 6 months. It isn't going to matter. The spotlight is such that it's shining light on a thing, for better or for worse, deserved or not, is going to cause them problems.
And even worse, this was an actual problem that Samsung admitted, even though they're saying, well, these shouldn't do it. Now, I mean, how bad is it for not only one of these to be confirmed to have had a problem, but on an airplane, too? Like, just to add insult to injury for Samsung. I would be very careful to say, you know what, this is a one-off thing. It doesn't mean anything unless we see a pattern. But there have been some other rumors out there that were also dismissible at the time of people saying that their replacement batteries were getting very hot. Of course, batteries get hot. My iPhone gets hot too. My Nexus 5X gets hot sometimes. So that's also not unusual. We'll have to wait and see if this becomes something that happens more often the way the original Note 7 batteries were. But it is a horrible confluence of events no matter what for Samsung.
Scientifically, we'll see whether there's a pattern. practically and in the minds of users, this is a problem for them, and I don't know how they get themselves out of it without some sort of massive thing that will cost them way too much money. Hey, check this out. The first phone with Google's Project Tango augmented reality depth sensing cameras, the Lenovo Fab 2 Pro, will be released in November. That is super exciting if you're excited about that. I know I was. 6.4-inch device will retail for $499, unlocked in the U.S. It's important, though, CNET notes, this phone will not support Daydream VR, and that's when I was not as excited. I was really hoping that, well, I don't know. I mean, I like standards, and I felt like Daydream VR had the best chance of being the adoptable mobile VR standard. Not so much, or at least not in this case. So
well,
if you're
it's a Lenovo phone, not a Google phone. It doesn't have the right screen. That's the problem. It doesn't meet the spec of the screen.
Yeah, that's a good point. But $499 is not bad for an unlocked phone. I don't know.
Donald,
what do you think?
Are you excited about Project Tango?
Yeah.
I remember when it first kind of came up when I was still at CNET as this experiment that they were running. I haven't yet to check back in and remind myself why I'm excited about the augmented reality phone. I remember the pitch was that you could kind of scan your entire surroundings. You could scan your house easily. You could import data really quickly into the phone to be formatted for whatever experience you want to develop. But I don't know what experiences have already been made that would make it interesting for me, and maybe you guys can enlighten me on that.
Yeah, I haven't seen the killer app for this yet. But maybe that'll become clear once the Fab 2 Pro actually arrives. And it would have been nice, Scott, I can't deny, to be able to plop that thing into a Daydream VR headset. But I guess you could put it in a cardboard. You don't need the Daydream thing.
Sure, that'll work either way. But I mean, the way I look at this stuff is, you just said, well, we haven't seen anything that proves Project Tango or their approach to AR has any killer apps. And I'm here to argue that neither has VR. So I am more of the opinion, as this year has gone on, that VR, AR, and mixed reality efforts are all kind of up in the air for me, because nobody's showing me anything quite yet where I go, you finally convinced me of the absolute perfect reason why this should exist. And without that, this is going to be an uphill struggle. I think they'll get there. I just don't know what it is yet, and whether Project Tango is it or not. It does sound like a thing that feels a little long in the tooth, even though it's just happening. So I don't know what that means. That's more about my perception, and I'll admit that. But
it means it has fangs.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a vampire. It's like history repeating itself today, by the way. We got a Note 7 exploding, even though it was replaced. Washington Post reports federal contractor from Booz Allen Hamilton, Harold Thomas Martin III, though, not Edward Snowden, of Maryland, was arrested in August and charged with the theft of government property and unauthorized removal and retention of classified materials. Investigators found classified information stored on various devices in his home. A source told the Post that officials are investigating if Martin was connected to the leak of NSA hacking tools that we talked about back in August. Martin appeared in court August 29th and remains detained. The charges were unsealed on Wednesday. That's why we didn't hear about it before now.
Yeah, this just broke today. Hard to get your head around what the actual impact of it is, or what he got his hands on, or what he has in his possession. But I guess that's, part of the process, and we're going to find out. But that's pretty intense, man. They could have some important stuff in there.
And this is the same position or the same context of what Edward Snowden, where he was sitting, right? I mean, it sounds like this is the same formula for creating someone who might want to be walking away with information.
Yeah, it shows how hard it was for him to do what he did, because this guy didn't plan very well. Snowden planned really well. He made sure he was well ahead of the game before he leaked anything. This guy, it sounds like, just kept things in his house. He didn't leave the country, leaked the tools online, thought he would be safe, and they nailed him. The other side of this story, and of course we don't know all the details, is that this is an agency that says if we want to fight the bad guys, we need to make sure we have extra tools, because we can't do it with what we have. And they cracked down, it looks like, on this guy pretty fast. If it does turn out that he was the one that leaked the tools in August, they got to him within less than a month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is like an episode of Mr. Robot, which is how I see everything in life right now. It's so difficult for me to separate the two. I will accuse myself now. Amazon introduced Prime Reading on Wednesday, and I'm just going to admit, again, a little bit of bias. I love any time where Amazon Prime becomes a more valuable service for me, where the money I pay out per year to them, get something else tacked onto it without an increase. That really makes me feel good. But Amazon introduced this Wednesday, Prime Reading, which gives subscribers to Amazon Prime in the U.S. access to a rotating library of more than 1,000 books, comics, and magazines. Service will be available on iOS, Android, as well as all the Kindle tablets, as you might imagine. Amazon will continue to offer the Kindle Lending Library to Prime subscribers. That service limits borrowing to 1 book a month and can only be accessed on Amazon hardware. So that's not going anywhere. But I am very excited about this idea. I'm in a big discovery mode with my reading these days. And a lot of how I'm doing that is, oh, that's on sale for 99 cents, or that's only $1.99 for today only. You see some of these flash sales they have. And that's been dragging me in. If you're now telling me that I can expand that reach with what sounds like a lot of books, maybe these are 1,000 terrible books, I don't know. But I guess I'll see when I go into there and dive in and check it out. But this is, I think, a really great thing and a smart way to create more discoverability and bring added value to Prime users.
I was just saying yesterday, because we were talking about Twitch being added to Amazon Prime, that they included Kindle Unlimited. I was wrong about that. Kindle Unlimited is a different plan. What they include is the Kindle Lending Library. That is part of Amazon Prime, which is one you mentioned that only gives you 1 book at a time. I don't even know why they would do Kindle Lending Library anymore when you have Amazon Prime Reading now, where you can just get any of the books. It sounds like there's going to be quite a bit of overlap between the two systems. A lot of the stuff that's in Kindle Unlimited is in the Lending Library. A lot of the Lending Library seems to be in Amazon Prime Reading. I'm assuming there's some difference. I also can't tell how you get to these things yet. Like I don't see anything about it in my Kindle app. And Allison Sheridan, who I was talking about this on email, she's the one pointed out that I made the mistake on Unlimited. She said she doesn't see anything in her actual Kindle yet. So maybe it's yet to roll out there. My guess is you'll probably see it on the Amazon pages themselves.
Yeah, and I checked the phone as well, didn't see anything. Haven't checked my tablet. Maybe something will update, and maybe it's just coming and they're rolling it out, or maybe there's nothing to change and it's purely, like you said, on the pages themselves. But I think the reason they kept the lending thing around is if they're only talking about 1,000 books to start with, if this is a starting point, or if it's ever only 1,000 rotating books or something, that's actually kind of small compared to the overall library that they have. So maybe they keep lending in there as a way of saying, well, there's still these other books that aren't in the 1,000 that I would like to use in the way I've used lending in the past. So that's the only thing I can think of. But what I would really like is a big all-you-can-eat subscription level thing. The way Prime works with video, I would love that for books and comics. And right now, their Comixology arm, which they own, kind of is trying to do that, but not really what I want. The book stuff is sort of kind of doing that with this now, but not exactly what I want. Like it's very tepid approach to what I ultimately want, which is a Netflix style, give me all of it for one low price, and that's not here yet.
Yeah, but on the flip side, you don't have to pay extra if you're already a Prime user for whatever other reason, like we mentioned yesterday. So might be a good way to develop that program like they did with Amazon Video, which they now offer as a standalone if you don't want to have it as part of the rest of Prime.
Yep.
Roku has introduced the Roku Direct Publisher tool, which lets anyone create a Roku channel without having to code. Now, you do have to have, like, assets for your splash screen, and you have to be able to have somewhere to host your video. So there's a tiny bit of technology savvy necessary for this, but it's way simpler than having to get in and do actual JSON and stuff like that. Rolling Stone, Us Weekly, and Cracked have used the tool to make apps. Channels built in the tool cannot charge subscriptions or video on demand fees yet, but they can monetize through display ads that Roku will serve and then give a cut of the proceeds to the channel creator.
That's super cool. Right now, there's a Frog Pants app on Roku that someone created for me. And it's nice because anytime it's video content, it's video. And even the audio content works. I assume, it's hard to say from what they've written here, that the audio stuff will be just as simple and easy.
Yeah, it's just an app, so I can't imagine it wouldn't be. It just would play audio instead of video when it
that helps us as people who create podcast content, because we've already got RSS feeds pointing to media files. Seems like a great way to do this, and it's something you can make yourself. When you say the word "make," Donald, that must make you thrilled to think of your own channel.
Yeah, well, just as someone who's also just trying to build my own YouTube channel, the thought of spending any extra effort to make a whole separate channel that runs on a Roku gives me a little bit of a cringe. But I can't argue with the idea of it being free for developers. Seemingly easy to develop for. So.
Doesn't the real trick for YouTubers like yourself and others is it's not going to pull YouTube content as the host, in other words. So YouTube will not be people's video hosts. And now you're talking about some redundancy, right? Like if you've already got a system in place where you're RSSing files, well, that's different because you're already hosting them wherever you're hosting them, and it's no second step or third step in work. But if you are putting content on YouTube and that is primarily where you serve it, and now you want to make sort of a mirrored app on Roku that publishes that same content, you're going to have redundant versions of all of that stuff in some sort of independent, web services hosting or something.
Right. And the thing I would fear for Roku is that, a year or two from now, this formula might just result in a bunch of dead ends, like a lot of channels that were created in the hopes of someone making enough money off of ad revenue that they would be able to pay, make up the difference in hosting fees for hosting the videos, but then they don't. And then you've got a lot of channels that have maybe a year's worth of content and then nothing else.
Yeah, that could add some clutter. But the flip side of that is that might not become a problem because of another problem, which is discoverability, right? Like it's a problem if you're discovering a bunch of apps that have bad content, but it's also a problem if you're like, oh, well, no one will ever see them because it's impossible to find any apps on the Roku store. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how they're going to curate it, is what I really want to watch for. Now, a provider of hardware that I am a big fan of or have been for years is Wacom, and Wacom introduced a standalone tablet. This is something they're really getting into. It also serves as a pen display called the Mobile Studio Pro. Comes in 2 new models, both of which run Windows 10 and can act as an input device for Windows or Mac. So you can use it as, say, a Wacom device as they are traditionally, but it's also a standalone computer. This is very interesting to me. Runs Windows 10, can act as an input device across the board. The Mobile Studio Pro 13 has a 13.3-inch IPS WQHD display that covers 96% of Adobe's RGB spectrum, which is very important to many of us who work in that the Adobe ecosystem. The Mobile Studio Pro 16 has a 15.6-inch screen, and an NVIDIA Quadro graphics processor, and an IPS UHD display that handles 94% of Adobe's RGB spectrum. I don't know that you'll notice those 2%, to be honest. But anyway, both come with the pen, the Pro Pen 2, that is supposed to be 4 times as accurate and pressure sensitive to the original Pro Pen, something I used and quite liked. The Mobile Studio Pro 13 starts at $14.99. So here's where the rubber meets the road, folks. The price: 64 gig and up. If you want the $24.99 model, that'll give you a 512 gigabyte storage.
And by the way, you're saying $2,400, not $24.99.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Let's be real clear about what we're talking about here. The 16 starts at hold on to your hats, $2,399 for 256 gigabytes, and that's up to $2,999 for 512 gig. The top end in 13 and both 16s come with Intel RealSense 3D cameras. That'll be available at the end of November. Everything about this sounds great to me as someone who is an illustrator, graphic artist, and cartoonist. I need this kind of hardware in my life. I have a big Wacom 22 HD right here next to me with touch sensitivity and all that, which I paid, I believe, the $29.99 for.
And is that a tablet? That's also a standalone tablet?
Yeah, no, it's not. And that's the problem. This is just like their big, fat, traditional display. And it's great for what it does, but you need a PC or a Mac to, get anything out of it. These being standalone units is great. At those sizes, though, this is too expensive, in my opinion. For a 16-inch device at that much money is way too much. I can go and get a pretty comparable sized, I don't know, Microsoft, tablet combo PC thing, whose name I completely slipped my mind.
Like a Surface or something?
Thank you, Surface Pro. I could get a Surface Pro running Windows 10, and running native applications like Adobe Photoshop CC, and I can do that for a lot less money.
But do they work as nicely as a drawing tablet? Is that the pitch?
And that's the trick, right? Like I've used a Surface, I've used an iPad Pro, and I've had a lot of experience with Wacom standalone tablets. My takeaway is the standalone tablets are still the standard for pro-level stuff. My second place is actually the iPad Pro and the Pencil. It's surprisingly good. The only complaint I have about that is it's running iOS, which isn't the same as having a full-blown OS. But there's ways around that. And then third, I'd give it to Microsoft. But these are just really expensive, and for the storage options, they're too expensive. So I don't know. I would, if I were making recommendations to people, let's wait and see some of the reviews. but I would also wait and see some of the new stuff coming out of Lenovo and other manufacturers. Dell's got a really nice pen tablet. You might find a better value for a whole lot less money with roughly the same capability by going with something like that. And I hope that they come up with something that's a little less pricey. But that's not really, I don't know, it's not really Wacom's way. So we'll see.
Donald, do you ever use these kind of tablets in any of the stuff that you do for Make?
No, I'm waiting for them to come up with the Amazon Fire Kindle subsidized drawing tablet, that can be woven into my Prime subscription.
and just delivered to your house.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. And just have like Amazon watermarks on all of my drawings.
Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. That is a look at our top stories. This weekend at World Maker Faire in New York, peace was declared. Arduino co-founder Massimo Bonzi of Arduino.cc and Federico Musto of Arduino.org announced that the two groups have signed a settlement agreement. There'd been a little legal spat between the two of them. Now, Donald, if I get this right, there will be an Arduino organization that'll distribute boards, like the hardware, and then the Arduino Foundation will maintain the Arduino IDE software.
Right, and it's been funny over the past 2 years seeing the split between these two providers of trademarked Arduino hardware and software. It used to just be there was one place to get your Arduino products, and then they had a difference of opinion, both legally and vocally, and made these two splintered Arduino organizations that were developing in parallel different Arduino products. And it was pretty confusing to figure out which one you would be going to get or not. Now, for better or for worse, what they've really done here, instead of actually merging back together, they've created a third entity that is like this Arduino holding company that is the distributor for all the Arduino products they've made in the intervening few years, so that distributors will be able to kind of just have one place to call to get their products instead of trying to figure out.
Is that where Genuino fits in, or is that something else?
Genuino was created by one of the two, this is Massimo's thing, which he had the trademark for Arduino in a number of countries, but in some countries he didn't. And so in those countries, the boards he was putting out there, he would call Genuino instead of Arduino because he couldn't legally call them Arduino boards.
That is so funny. Just to get the word genuine in there, you make it work.
Right.
Genuino.
Genuino.
He's from Sweden, right? Like anyway. So we are friends with Anthony Carboni and Jeff Kanata of the fantastic award-winning podcast We Have Concerns, and one of their running gags is that Anthony doesn't believe Arduino exists, and Jeff cannot explain it to him to his satisfaction. We wanted to try to get Anthony on the show today, but he wasn't available. Hopefully, though, Donald, I think you can explain what it is, not just for Anthony's sake, but there's a lot of people in the audience who are like, yeah, I hear Arduino. I get that it's open source hardware, but what does that mean? What is Arduino?
Arduino, I got it in front of me here. Here's your basic Arduino board. This is the Arduino Uno. Where is it? It's right up here. This is one of several boards that fall into this category of things called Arduino. And the main thing it is it's this Atmel chip right here, which is otherwise pretty complicated to figure out how to program in C++. You want to get this thing to do any work for you, you have to learn some serious coding and fall down the rabbit hole of coding microprocessors, which is not fun for anybody, at least if you're not an engineer. So the raft of greenish blue around here is what the Arduino really is. You could take out the chip. Here's the Atmel chip that could pop right out.
It just pops right off the circuit board.
So what the Arduino is really the raft of material around that chip, which the way I think about it, this thing was created in the early 2000s by a crew of people who were teaching interactive design and art at an Italian university that does not exist anymore. And what they wanted to do was create a really easy way for their art and design students to create interactive projects with a minimum of having to learn, a minimal amount of engineering to make it happen. So this is the Arduino software that you plug this into to program the chip. You don't program it in the C+ that the chip reads. You program it in this artsy-friendly language called processing to create interactive things, so that if someone presses a button or the temperature goes up or whatever the sensor, whatever the input is, It can create a functional output to turn a motor or ring a bell or do a thing. So yeah, that's
so
the
Arduino
gist.
is the hardware that supports the chip, but not the chip.
It's not the chip. The chip is an Atmel AT Mega something or other. There's a few different boards that use a few different supported chips, but
and it just makes it easier to use that chip for multiple things.
Yes, it makes it easier to leverage what's possible with the chip without having to learn an ancient and complicated language to do that, and
like assembly or something.
Yeah, and to easily plug things in. Like this board itself has a bunch of headers that you can just plug wires into without really even having to pick up a lot of electronics knowledge along the way. But you can plug in your sensors, you can plug in the things you want triggered by the sensors, and then through the coding you do when you plug this into your computer and load up your instructions, you can do some trickery to make it sensitive to certain parameters or a certain context. If you want to be able to press a button or do something that's going to trigger even like a burst of flame. I've seen things like this control propane tanks at Maker Faire. And I've also seen it used in robotics. I mean, the reason it's kind of the backbone of so many maker projects is because the same thing that made it easier for art students to program something like this is really what makes it easy for people who are just getting into electronics, or kids who are interested in learning how to do things with electronics. It makes it easier for them as well. And it's also an open source hardware, which is kind of the blessing and the curse for Arduino, because that's what's made it so easy to pirate the design files for this and make knockoffs, is that everything you need to know about making these boards is out there in the open.
But is it pirating though if it's open source?
Yeah, not so much, and not unless you're using the same design language and calling it an Arduino. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different versions of this that are made by different companies with the full blessing of Arduino that call themselves different things. But if they still have the right to be able to call their particular boards and trademark them the way that they see fit.
Now, and do they Oh, go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say Fakerino, but also I was going to say this. What's the difference? And I'm asking this as a complete dummy, and there may be others who are like me, so I'm asking them. The difference between this and, say, a Raspberry Pi, what are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, the Raspberry Pi I got in front of me, too. I thought if I raid the drawer of boards, I might as well get them all out. I mean, a Raspberry Pi is a what do they call it? Like a SoC, like a whole system.
System on a chip, yeah.
This is a computer for all practical purposes. It has its own OS. It runs and functions just like a computer, like a Linux computer, or however you want to load whatever OS you want to load onto this. Whereas the Arduino is, I think of it more like a nervous system. Like the chip, the microcontroller chip that's on here, is really designed to be able to take an input and spit out a reaction, but not so much to think about playing videos or processing things or running an OS the way that a computer would.
Okay.
Yeah, so an Arduino, you can put it together to make something, but it in and of itself can't do much, right?
Right.
Whereas a Raspberry Pi, obviously you have to put in an input device and an output device, but that's all you need to make it do some interesting things because it's a full computer.
There you go. But also, I mean, Raspberry Pi, there's a different barrier of entry when you're programming something like a Raspberry Pi. You're probably learning Python. You're falling down that rabbit hole that some people love, but other people, the art students of the world, and myself included, are much more, I want to be able to do as little as possible to get this to spit something out when I press a button, and the Arduino can do that very practically.
I think one of the things that is imposing to people is they see an Arduino. First of all, it sounds complicated because it's got this fancy name. And then they see it and they see that breadboard, they see that green, and they're like, that's too complicated for me.
Yeah, I know.
But the fact is, like, put that thing in a nice Lego looking case and just call it like, here's Lego for building things, and suddenly, and there's actually companies that do that.
Right.
Suddenly, you're just like, oh, so all I do is plug this block into this block, and it can blink an LED, and if I plug it in here, it can control a motor and drive around with wheels, and you don't have to know anything about that hardware that's on there.
Yeah, I think that the thing that's going for Arduino over the past 10 years is that there's such a huge community and legacy of projects that have been built on it and have been shared, and the code. I think you could, if you start diving into Arduino, you could spend the first year just copying and pasting other people's ideas and shooting them onto this thing, and not even learning the syntax of how these things are coded from scratch. You know, that's been my experience, at least anyways, is really kind of going in, seeing the code, barely grasping it, but knowing that if I want to change how far the motor turns, I make that number go up, or just doing the little bit of poking and prodding to push the existing code and to do what I want it to do. I probably shouldn't admit that, but that's
no, I think that make a lot of people feel better about, like, oh, really? So that's not cheating if I do that.
Yeah. No, and the other thing I think about is I think about all the Italian art students that, you know, are smoking cigarettes and drinking espresso.
Sure.
And thinking about this board. And it's just that calms down my anxiety about all of the you know, the electronics I'd see.
Yeah.
It makes it a very different product than.
You just keep a Fellini film going in on the background.
Exactly.
You
have to think about all the art students you'd be impressing somewhere.
Well, and the last thing before we move off this, you alluded to the fact that there are lots of legitimate companies that make Arduino compatible boards. They're just not allowed to call them Arduino. Is Arduino even the best way to go these days?
I think there's a really good quality control with an Arduino that isn't there with, say, like the real far end of the knockoffs that you can find on eBay that are trying to emulate and look exactly like an Arduino but aren't. But there are a lot of variants of the Arduino that you can come across from places like Adafruit or SparkFun or reputable suppliers of electronics that maybe just change a thing or two. Maybe there's more pins. Maybe it interfaces better with a motor if that's the kind of project you're doing. But I don't think you can go wrong by getting this is like the Toyota Camry of Arduino boards, the Uno. And once you hit a wall with this, then you'll know where to go. But you can't go wrong by going with this guy first.
Good place to start.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to some messages before we get out of here. Meredith wrote in and said, hey, heard about that new Facebook Marketplace feature. It's been on my iOS app for over a month. She says, I guess I was a beta tester? And she said her only report is that she's been annoyed because it always has a red notification number on it, since people are constantly adding new posts. And if the notification number would ever go away, she says it won't, I could potentially see the new feature as the Craigslist killer you guys thought it might be. But she doesn't even want to mess with it because there's that glowing red number that just won't go away. Magnus heard us talking about 8K TVs yesterday and wrote in to say he saw NHK's 8K screens during the International Broadcasting Convention this year. He adds, although the 8K screens were cool, most of us regular IBC attendees have seen this for a few years. What was really cool this year was a touch-sensitive sphere screen from Pufferfish. This screen really blew my mind, and it's the first time I've really seen a cool way to use a 360-degree video without getting motion sickness. He has a short clip from his iPhone of him touching the sphere at the conference, and we'll throw that in the show notes as well. But it is like a Palantir. It's actually a sphere, and the 360-degree video is projected inside of it. So it's like you're looking at a globe, and you can then interact with it because it's a touch screen as well.
I am so into this. Like, whatever that is, let's have that become mainstream and get my studio now, because that is awesome. I didn't even know that existed. That is amazing.
And then Russell wrote in and said he thinks this might be a big deal for his clients. They're always craving higher resolution displays for viewing their models in greater detail. He says it seems like the 8K might find a home in the technical design fields where that kind of resolution can help you see in finer detail. Finally, I got a couple more here. Brenton chided me for not using a smartwatch. He said, if you did, you'd know that built into my watch is Siri, and Siri works to control my smart home devices. Siri is also built into my phone, my TV, my iPad, and my computers. This difference in approach of placing a single-purpose device in a fixed location compared to putting the voice-activated assistants into anywhere it fits isn't really putting Amazon in a leading position, in Brenton's opinion. He says Amazon seems to me to be running towards the Microsoft and Apple approach now by putting it into more devices. Even Google is in more products than just the Echo and Dot and few others they've managed. It's a great point. I still think Amazon Echo has the bigger mind share, but he may be right that Apple leaps forward because it's now in your desktop. It's going to be in more devices. Still have to have Apple devices, though. You can't get Siri on your Android phone or on your Windows laptop. And Matt points out that Google only supports one account per device, which takes away a big advantage of that fixed device. Echo supports two. But even then, that can be a problem if you're in a larger household.
Yeah. I mean, Apple's approach is one that Google could easily go for because they want to push Android Wear, and they'd like to see that take off more than it is right now. So there's more they could do about making everyone have a portable Google Assistant watch right on their wrist. If anyone has the capability of doing that more, it's probably them because they're also a little more multi-platform friendly. So my money's actually with them figuring this out. It maybe take a little while, and you're right about mindshare for Echo, but I wouldn't count Google out of this stuff just yet.
And Al, the Iraqi doctor, wrote to wonder about Google's support lifespan for the new Pixel phone now that it's handling the whole phone experience. He says, my wife's iPhone 5 from 2012 was updated to iOS 10 a few days ago, and she receives patches regularly. The flip side is my Nexus 7 from 2013 was left out of the Android 7.0 update. And that's somewhat forgivable for a $200 tablet, but I think it would be highly inappropriate for a $650 plus phone. So we'll keep an eye out to find out if Google says anything about the lifespan of the Pixel. But you're right. If you buy this phone and you spend $650, a lot of people are going to want to use it for more than a couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're all in this new pattern of getting new phones every year, but not everybody.
Well, thank you, Donald Bell, for joining us. A pleasure.
Yes.
We hope you come back soon.
I'd love to come back. Thank you, Tom, for having me on.
Tell people about Maker Project Lab, what you can find there, and where they can subscribe.
Maker Project Lab is two things for me. It's a weekly show that I do. I call Maker Update, where I just kind of like you, I'll put together some news that's interesting to makers. I'll throw in some of my favorite projects from the past week. Talk about upcoming maker fairs and upcoming contests on Instructables, and just package that together, and that's a lot of fun to do. And I'll also do some builds of either kits or other maker projects, and show those off and give my review of them. I kind of do like a reviewer's take on projects instead of a just kind of going through the motion and telling you what to do, but why it might be good or bad to do it.
I really liked your project of the week on this episode that posted today with the ability to create your own three-dimensional topographic maps. That was cool.
That was a neat one, yeah, and also not that complicated to do with even just cardboard if you wanted to.
Like, yeah, you can make it really pretty if you have the right saws and everything, but you could do it. You did it with like what, scissors and some cardboard?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that gets lost in a lot of the maker stories, like the Thor's hammer kind of maker stories, where it's like, oh, it's amazing, but I'm never gonna do that. I like to try to find the projects that are more attainable.
So check it out at makerprojectlab.com and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Scott Johnson, what do you got going on?
Oh, there's a million things, but I'll just mention one. Every Thursday, most Thursdays, occasionally there's hiccups, but most Thursdays I do an art stream on Twitch now at exactly, I want to say 2 o'clock p.m. Yeah, 2 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time. That's 1 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you watch DTNS, though. Do that first, and then catch either my VOD later or watch it at the same time or whatever. But I draw live and create either art for the upcoming comic or just random stuff that the audience is throwing out. I often do this with my daughter Carter, who is also in this field, and it is a blast, and we have a really good time over there. So people should check that out. Go to frogpants.com/Twitch, and you'll get everything you need to know.
Thanks to everybody who makes this show possible. We don't take advertising because we don't have to, and that means we can remain more independent because you're our boss. If you want to know how to support the show, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. The main way to support is Patreon. Thanks to Jeff Beard and Wrath, who just upped their patron backing today. You guys are the best. We appreciate all our bosses. Thank you very much. Patreon.com/DTNS. Don't forget, our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back tomorrow with Dr. Kiki as our guest, talking some science. See you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good show, you guys. That was great. Thank you for explaining Arduino.
I hope it made some sense. Yeah, I'm on the hook for doing an Arduino presentation at the Oakland Maker Faire in a couple weeks. So I want to make sure I get it together a succinct explanation for it.
Well, I feel like I understand it better than I did. Scott, what about you?
I totally do, and that's one of the reasons I brought up the Raspberry Pi question, because to me, no one's ever really explained that those are very different things, or that they have different use cases, and you did that very well. I mean, I think that may come up again, because I think some people look at it, like I looked at it like, oh, is Raspberry Pi kind of the mainline brand that everyone knows, and Arduino's more of like a standard that's more open sourcey, and Raspberry Pi is a little more locked down. Like a lot of that stuff I just didn't know and haven't bothered to go check out. So what you told us today really helped me.
Yeah, no, when I was at Make, and we had a pop-up store around the holidays, and one of the questions that was like the question of all people coming into the store was like, which board should I choose? What's the difference between I've heard of them both, but I don't really get, which one's newer, which one has more features, and
which one's more powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And the Raspberry Pi is a lot more powerful from a pure processing and feature standpoint, but and the cop-out answer is really always like, what are you trying to do with it? And if you're just trying to get a button to shoot off a propane tank, then you go with an Arduino. Don't overthink it. You probably don't want an OS getting in the way of that particular function. But if you want to have a perfect emulation, like a main cabinet of every vintage console you can think of, then you can not make an Arduino do that. That's where a Raspberry Pi comes in handy.
Well, I'm glad I bought the right thing. I have a Pi right over here that I was told that's what I wanted, a Pi 3 for a main cabinet I want to build. And I guess I did the right thing. But then again, like if I've got some crazy controller chip needs for specific joystick hardware or roller ball hardware and stuff, I've heard others say, well, you can integrate an Arduino in a way to get better control of that stuff. So I got to get there's going to be a big project for me, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Hey, that's where YouTube comes in handy. Many have figured it out. You don't have to pioneer your own unique solution to the main cabinet. It's a tradition now.
Now we get title suggestions for the show at showbot.tv live during our broadcast. Roger, what do we got? That's good. Roger, we can't hear you.
Oh, he says one. No.
Oh, this happens sometimes where his mic goes out. He'll be back.
I love the top vote getter is Donald Bell Explains Arduino.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I apologize. Yes, Donald Bell Explains Arduino. You say Arduino, I say Arduino. Right. No noticeable improvement when Arduino to rule them all. Actually, I like this line, and this is not only because I drive a Toyota Camry. The Toyota Camry of Arduino boards, I think, is pretty good. Nothing fancy, but it does what you need it to do, and you know what it does. Baby burn, Samsung Inferno. Small chip, big impact. Touching the sphere. Arduino, where hardware meets software.
Arduino, which is better?
That's terrible.
I've always wondered what are the number of because I want to make a fighting stick for Street Fighter 2 like style games, and I want to reuse old hardware I have, but it was all designed for like an Xbox, like the original Xbox or PS2, and you can get like a controller, which is what they call a Cthulhu interface that allows you to basically map it into a more modern 360 or Xbox One controller. And I'm wondering if Arduino could do that, or should I just spring for that not chip, but the interface?
I think you take the path of least resistance if it's not outrageously priced.
All right. Good answer. I like that.
I like that our audience is suggesting the most SEO-friendly title, which even I don't always care about that. But Donald Bell Explains Arduino is the runaway hit. So I think that's
good.
What we're call it.
I'll take it.
9 votes. Pretty good.
Yeah, man, I've been enjoying the shows on your YouTube channel. Do you have a youtube.com/ address also?
Yeah, it's youtube.com. Well, it's like youtube.com/c/maker project lab. I think. I don't know why there's a /c in there.
Oh, is it because you're a creator? Is that a creator thing?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh, cool.
It may work if you don't include the C.
I was just trying that. Yeah, you don't have to include the C.
Okay.
It still goes to the right same place.
Yeah, mine does that too, I think. Hey, Donald, you're one of those people I'm not supposed to like because you got a first name for a Twitter handle. It just yes.
It goes back to the scene. Hey, do not feel whatever envy you might feel right now. Realize the past 2 years has been nothing but Donald Trump hate tweets.
You know, I didn't even think about that because Ryan Block has Ryan, and he gets Ryan Seacrest hate tweets. I can't imagine.
Oh my! It's made Twitter unusable. Actually, as soon as I signed up Maker Project Lab for like a Twitter handle, I got to experience what Twitter is like again. For like most people.
Think about that.
It's horrible.
Has the same problem when a big Veronica thing comes up and she gets the wrong tweets. You know Will Smith over at Tested, or was it Tested?
Yeah.
Same problem, except he's permanently having a problem because he is Will Smith, and the actual Will Smith does not have Will Smith.
What's also funny is I worked right across at CNET. I worked with Bernie McGinn, my coworker, who has at Bernie. Yeah. And so he's at Bernie. And so for all the Bernie Sanders stuff, he was getting all the Bernie stuff, and I was getting all the Donald stuff.
And then remember when you worked with Hillary McGuffin? And she got
But no, there's a lot of first name clubs over at CNET. There's Josh. At Josh was there. At Nicole, who's now at Engadget. Nicole Lee.
Well, Nicole Lee was the first person I followed on Twitter. Yeah. But I signed up for CNET at CES because Veronica came up to me at the CES CNET booth and said, "Oh, you got to try this new Twitter thing." So I think that CES is like what brought a bunch of us on, and of course, dummy, I didn't sign up for Tom, which probably was already taken by that because it's Tom.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, Donald was taken too, but Josh, who I was working with, he's like, you should just email Twitter. There's a Donald account that hasn't been used for a year now. And so they were still small enough as an organization to be like, yeah, sure, we'll make it work. So I wrestled the @Donald away from somebody else.
Well, in November, you can either breathe easy or really hunker down.
Oh man.
Well, I never got. Someone already had @Roger, and I didn't want. For some reason, I thought @Roger Chang was too prosaic because this is literally like the month Twitter launched. So I just picked @JollyRoger. So I figured it would somehow be worth my while and valuable, and it's a little from column A, a little from column B.
Yeah,
this is all right. I like it. I found a guy who had Scott Johnson, which is a very common name, and I said, just on a fluke, hey, I see you're not using it. Interested in selling it? And he goes, I'll give it to you. I don't care. Gives it to me. I'm like, sweet, I got my name. Changed it over and everything. And about 2 months later, I get an email him begging for it back. He was like, I screwed up. I'm going to use it now. I just need it back. And I'm like, oh, man. I just can't now. He was really mad at me, but oh well. It worked out.
Yeah.
Take that, the rest of the Scott Johnsons.
Yeah. It's hard. I always figured using your actual name would be. I don't know why. I don't know why I did what I do.
I did it later. I mean, that's the thing. Tom did Ace Detect, which is impossible to decode unless you know him. Now fine, but at the time he did it because like me, he was probably like, "Oh, this is some throwaway thing."
Right. That's what I thought. It's like, "Oh, just use that Jolly Roger."
Yeah, like a gamer tag kind of thing.
I don't even have that as a gamer tag. Someone else took it. Schmuck.
Bastards.
So I have to do Jolly Ramjet now.
Jolly Ramjet?
Like, Jolly Roger or Roger Ramjet. So I'm just... Jolly Ramjet, he's...
Scramjet.
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 So cool. Donald Bell explains Arduino. Wins.
I'm still exporting my file. Oh, and Donald, you don't have to stick around if you don't. If you need to go anytime. I just stay on the stream until I publish the file.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm gonna go. Maybe I might be able to squeeze in a little tiny project thing I've been wanting to do.
Nice.
Drag the lights into this room and make it. There's usually I've been explaining to you how there's construction on this house almost every other day, but today was a nice window. But yeah, there's the studio I have out in the back. I'm literally dragging a extension cord like 100 feet from my garage where I have a plug out to this shed out back where I've been filming these segments just to run power out there. So if I actually have to shoot like a project video, I have to do it here at my dining room table.
I know how that goes. I have this set up for DTNS, but then I have to turn on a bunch of stuff to use it, and it doesn't necessarily have the best camera angle for certain things. So then I tried my dining room table, and then I've gone back and forth. It's, I can't wait till making video becomes as easy as recording audio.
I know, man. My biggest thing, I would do regular video stuff every week if I just...
I mean, it's getting better.
It's getting better, but it's still this huge undertaking every time.
Yeah.
Compared to audio,
Well, there's so many more facets because people want to look good and they want their stuff to look good. And
the baseline is getting better. Like the cameras on phones are better. The audio on that mic is better. But then people still say like, "Oh, I can't really hear you as well. Why don't you plug in a mic? Where are the lights?" It's like, because that causes problems. Because that takes a while. Yeah.
it is.
All right. Well, it's been great being on the show. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Donald. Come back soon.
Thank you so much for being on.
Involved in the title too. That's a cherry on top.
Yay.
All right.
That's good to see you, man.
Good to meet you guys.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Awesome. That was a great show.
Arduino pleased.
I've only used Raspberry Pi. I didn't want to tell them that. So that's my only experience with I don't even want to call them. I used to call them microcontrollers, but they're not.
Arduino men.
Arduino mints.
Arduino.
Who you'd totally get along with is John Jagger, one of my co-hosts on the Hero Show we do. He is the best at these bad puns.
Oh, I've been on Current Geek a couple times with Jagger.
Yeah, you know what's up. You've moved like Jagger. But
now you're doing it.
The other day, so Zarya got introduced into Heroes of the Storm. She's an Overwatch character named Zarya. So she shows up in there, and his show title for our episode was "I Zarya her face. Now I'm a believer." And I just thought that is some Tom Merritt ass Tom Merritt going on right there. Sadly true.
Oh, is that I guess it's a pun.
And I Zarya her face.
I guess that's when Davy Jones had a little too much to drink before singing.
Right, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You've even got a backstory. That's good.
Is he the only one that's alive, or did everyone else? Mickey Dolenz? Didn't Mickey Dolenz pass away?
No, you're right. There is only one left. Yep, one monkey.
They eventually learned how to play their instruments too.
Well, one of them knew already.
Yeah, that's
Nesmith
true.
knew.
Yeah, Nesmith. But I mean, like as a band together.
Yeah.
Actually learned to play. So they
I want to see that. Everyone always talks about that movie they made that Jack Nicholson wrote called like Head or Horror.
I think it's Head. Yeah.
Is it Head? Yeah. I keep hearing really like that's a thing to see no matter what age you are, no matter who you are. My wife brought me a burger. Thanks, babe.
Like you said, film 1986.
What kind of burger?
86?
No, 68. I'm sorry, 1968. American adventure musical satire film, written by Jack Nicholson and Bob Rafelson.
I think if I knew that Nicholson wrote it, I'd forgotten it. That's interesting.
Right, Columbia.
It's too many things I want to see.
What kind of burger did you get?
She brought me a thing from. It looks like a single thing from The Habit. Well, you might The Habit, didn't we?
You have a good habit there.
It's the small one, which is good because I don't need to be pigging out.
When I went to Salt Lake City, I made sure to get in the habit.
Yeah, get in that habit.
And order a burger.
Oh yeah, you ordered the big one. Thinking it would be kind of normal, and it was like a monster.
Yeah, I ordered like was the regular or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the double? Was it a double? Because I always get a double at In-N-Out. I think that's what it was. I ordered the double, and it was like ridiculous.
Yeah, their double's like 3 burgers or something.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
You ate it though, to your credit.
My gosh, yeah. Don't waste food.
Like so much Clamato. It was
When you have
down.
Depression-era parents, you learn.
We were raised to eat the whole burger.
We make use of all the burger. So I had a text message conversation with Anthony Carboni earlier to try to see if he was available. Sadly, he was not. However, he has published excerpts on Twitter from our text message conversation. So,
lovely.
Yeah, you can go find
That's what you want.
the excellent part where Anthony says, if there's one chip that you can use as anything, then why do we still have different things? Wake up, sheeple. Kubrick did 9/11. And I wrote his best work.
Yeah, but it wasn't that. I remember a while back, like maybe back in the mid '90s, there was a commercial for an airline or whatever. Like they're just talking about like. Oh no, maybe it was for like, I'm trying to remember, but someone made the comment of, yes, I was on flight 911 referring to the emergency. And I was thinking if they ever played that again, people would not automatically assume as the emergency call, but rather the September 11th date.
Yeah.
And how did Anthony Carboni reply to you? I've emailed him like 2 or 3 times and he never gets
Text
back.
message. I only just by text message.
You got to get a text message going.
Do you have his phone number?
On Twitter.
I have a phone number for him.
Here, let me get.
Here, why don't you share it with me while we're streaming live?
It's 444-444-4444.
Wow, you got lucky with that one.
Yeah.
I am impressed.
All right. I think I have published us, despite my distractions, accurately and correctly.
Where am I going to get? See, that's the one thing about moving. Where am I going to find a good burger now? Like I just now kind of figured where everything was.
You've lived in San Francisco for how long?
For a long time.
And you just now figured where everything is? I don't think that's true.
You're right. I figured out where everything was, and then a bunch of hipsters moved in, changed everything, and made it crappy. So I had to find new places.
See, that's why you have to leave.
That's
Things
true.
in LA never move.
Like everywhere I go, there's a hipster. It's just all over the place.
Not in LA.
No.
Hipster free.
I am looking.
Not a single pretentious person in the entire county.
I don't have to see anyone wearing a woolen beanie on a 78 or 80 degree day, walking around with a scarf.
No, but up where you're going to be, there's tons of great burger places. You'll have no shortage.
In fact, they call it the Burger County.
The Burger Valley. That's what they call it. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. You guys are the best. Thank you, everyone, for listening.